years later, what's the legacy of leadership does that person have of that person in their mind? And recently, I was at the BX picking something up, and I get tapped on the shoulder, and it was an airman with his son, who his son is now about to graduate. And he
Mm.
was so proud of showing and introducing me to his son, but he was so ecstatic that, "Are you Sergeant Caballero?" And I was in your flight. I mean, he was just bouncing off the wall and ceiling. And to me, that spoke volumes of my approach, like I say, modus operandi, your mode of operation in terms of how are you going to gauge, connect, and interact. And so we connected on LinkedIn. I'm super excited
Wow.
and proud of his accomplishments and his achievements. And so, yeah, it just goes back to your modus operandi. What was it that you leveraged and utilized in the way that you engaged, connected, and interacted, in essence, trained those flight members?
I only found out just last year about this. So it's a big eye opener now on how learning and modality goes over and works. And when I met that TI, for me personally, I needed Jesus and God used him to motivate me to Jesus. I literally ran to the chapel that first week. And then they had a Bible study, and then they had fellowship, and then they had the service. I was going 3 hours on Sunday. I was religiously recruiting. And I wasn't even a Christian yet. So for me, I'm kind of glad he had that bravado with me and everything else. Now looking at hindsight, but I think, yeah, the modality doesn't work long term. I think for certain people, certain parts of their lives, I needed that discipline. I needed that structure. I needed that person that was far away. Because if I had a friend as a TI, like if I could relate to him in that way now, I don't think I would ever submitted to the authority. For me, I needed that person that was like that. And it was actually helpful. He became real one time with me because again, I couldn't march worth a darn and everything else. So I became a road guard. And then at the end, when we went to honor flight, he pulled me in the office privately and he became human. It was a little weird. And he's like, "Hey, we're about to go into flight and everything else. I don't want to prevent you from marching, but are you wanting to go over and do that?" And I said, "I'm going to sacrifice for my flight." I said, "I know we'll get written up like crazy. They'll be like in that honor flight 1, 2, 3, 4 because I can't keep. I'm actually flat-footed and plantar fasciitis, so they actually got zero demerits. So, and I knew if I was standing in that flight and marching, I always lost and missed steps. So for me, that was the first human moment I had with him, and then that was it. And then it all just faded away. So after that honor flight and everything, and they marched, the last couple of days went by real fast, and then he kind of faded to the wind. So it's really cool to hear that you have those moments with those people and they made memories and positive memories. For me, it made it more like it was more sanctifying memories.
And the other thing too to keep in mind about reservists is that we're not unnecessarily on a career path or track.
Mm,
You're really autonomous in terms of what your next steps look like, because you can stay in a position for years
mm,
versus active duty, where it's every 3 or 4 or 5 years you're on the
mm,
road, you're moving to a new base, and depending on did you make rank or not, um, you're not going to be successful unless you're mobile. But
mm.
for reservists, it's a different show or different situation. So for me, I pretty much maintained a career at Lackland or Randolph here in San Antonio, and then my final time was at Warner Robins in Georgia.